Hey there, I hope you're doing great and are energized about a new week ahead of us. And I want to shoot this video to give you a deeper insight as to how you can have more performance, how you can have more protection and support for what you want to see happen through developing more of what we call this global alpha brain coherence. And what they've found is that world-class athletes and business leaders and musicians have found to have a large amount of this coherence frequency in their brain functioning, which enables them to feel more, see more, know more, have more of those right thoughts and feelings to act on at the right time, and really allows them to have up to 5 times less thoughts than the average person. And the other reason why this is so important, because as we have more coherence in our brain functioning, then we have more capacity. And through more capacity, we're able to utilize our confidence and our competence and our ability to connect with ourselves and others and be congruent becomes that much more powerful and more effective. And this is extremely important in a world that is exponentially changing. We more than ever have to be able to adapt, to be in tune with change, to be a victor of change and not a victim of change. And then also I wanted to give you this insight because this is the reason why we've worked with clients for 5 to 10 years and being able to give them the results they want to see happen, being able to ensure that happens. And a lot of it is because we're able to activate more of this global alpha coherence in them and with their environment and with their team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you exactly what this global alpha coherence is, and then I'm going to tell you why it's so important, and then finally how to activate more of it so that you can enjoy more performance, more protection and support for what you want to see happen. So what is global alpha coherence? Well, quite simply, it's all-encompassing coherence both inside yourself and outside of yourself. So it can be that coherence between what your mind thinks and your heart feels and your body does. It can be that coherence between that right creative side brain of yourself and that left logical executing side of yourself. It can be that coherence between that lower brain, which is about those basic need, survival desires and needs, and that higher brain functioning, which is really about moral reasoning and doing the right thing by yourself and others and the environment. And then also it's that coherence between our prefrontal cortex, which is really responsible for making all those very important strategic and progressive decisions, and that amygdala, which is when we get in that fight or flight state. And ultimately the coherence between these two parts of the brain enable us to have more vigilance, and vigilance to avert dangers and problems before they arise. And also this coherence, this global alpha coherence, can be obviously between yourself and your team and your vendors and your clients and customers and marketplace and industry as a whole. And also the ability to have that coherence between that shorter term picture, those finer details and needs in the short term, and that bigger long term picture. So it's really all-encompassing coherence, as you can probably recognize. And it really starts with that coherence across all hemispheres of the brain. And again, this is why world-class athletes and business leaders and musicians are that, because they are in a state of activating more of that most of the time, if not all of the time, so that they have the best thoughts and feelings to act on at the right time. So that's what global alpha is. Now, I'm going to break it down later in terms of neurophysiology. But what I want to explain now is why this global alpha is so important. Now, we live in an information age where we can get inundated with information. We can also get inundated with challenges and complexities and confusion, and that can lead to overwhelm. So obviously we need information to make decisions, but how much information really do we need versus how much do we need to be more coherent and aware within ourselves to be able to connect the dots and make the best decisions. So either we can get absorbed in more and more information, or we can culture ourselves to be a little more settled and coherent and aware, so that we're able to have more of those best thoughts and feelings and have the right information come through us or to us. The next reason why it's so important is because time management is really based on energy management. And energy management is based on thought management. And thought management is really based on how much global alpha coherence you have in your brain functioning. So more global alpha coherence, then more ability to pick up on the best thoughts and use them in the time or the energy that you have and the time that you have. Now, the final reason why this global alpha coherence is so important is because it has an ability to neutralize incoherence and negativity that can obviously block us and slow us down. Now, negativity and incoherence is always there. It's not something we can destroy. It's a part of life and a part of nature. It's to give us a signal that we're either on the right path or the wrong path. And the more coherent we become, the more we're able to keep at bay that negativity and incoherence. Because the environment that we're working in or living in is ultimately created by people and by us. And what creates us? Well, what thoughts, feelings, and behavior that we have. Now, what creates that behavior? Well, it's how much coherence we have to have more orderly, harmonious, and progressive thinking, feeling, and acting. And that then translates into the environment and creates a better environment. So more coherence, the less there's incoherence that's bothering us and affecting our environment. Now, why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, first of all, as a competitive runner, top competitive runner, won national and regional provincial championships. I was also a rugby player, did both those sports for 10 years, a championship winning rugby player. And then I became a full-time meditating monk. And when I mean full-time meditating monk, I mean 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I ended up doing that for 10 years. So I understand both the outer game and the inner game. And I've been working with top CEOs and their teams over the last couple of decades, really helping them integrate that outer game and that inner game. So I have tens of thousands of hours of deep silent meditation, as well as tens of thousands of hours of practice and training through my sport and endeavor, and then tens of thousands of hours of working with top leaders. And I'm also a Meisner trained actor for a couple of years. So I have a really good perspective on this, and I've studied the neuroscience on this brain functioning. I've been fortunate enough to sit down with some of the top neuroscientists in the world studying high performance and really get from them the understanding of why people are high performers based on brain coherence. So how is this global alpha coherence more activated in the brain? Well, they've found that there's three major ways that they can scientifically validate. The first one is exercise, because it involves mind-body coordination. So anything that involves you thinking and acting, using your body, is going to help generate more alpha coherence in your brain functioning. This is why exercise is so important, not only just to keep us healthy and cardiovascular, but also to make our brain more coherent. Now, the next one they've found to be even more significant in activating global alpha coherence is music, is that quality of sound frequency. Now, they've found it especially when you play music. Listening to music has an effect, has a good effect on increasing alpha in the brain, but playing music even more so, because you're engaging yourself not only mentally, but emotionally and physically. Now, what they've found that activates the most global alpha coherence, even beyond exercise and music, is transcending meditation. Now, there's a lot of talk about meditation in the world right now because people want to be less stressed. They want to be more orderly and more settled while they're dealing with all this exponential change. So meditation's become quite popular, yoga and meditation. And I believe all meditation and yoga is useful in some way, shape, or form. Now, I want to categorize the different types of meditation so you're aware of what they do and what the benefits come from doing it, and then you can make the best choice that's suitable for you. So the first type of meditation that you can find out there is what they call focused attention meditation. And on this diagram just here, I'm just going to break it down. So this is the active part of the mind, the more surface level of the mind, and this is the more deeper, settled level of the mind. So in focused attention meditation, then there's some object, some direct focus that we're putting attention on. It could be some object, it could be some picture, or something that we are specifically at a point in time or over a period of time just specifically focused on one thing. Now, what this does is it activates what they call gamma frequency in the brain. When we focus on something, this gamma frequency gets activated. Now, this gamma frequency really shows that we're concentrating, right? It's the focus and concentration frequency. So it's a very excited and alert frequency. So it's very good, that type of meditation, if you want to culture the mind to be very focused for a particular period of time. Now, it's settling the mind to a certain level, it's focusing the mind down to a certain level, but it's still relatively on the active surface level of the mind to do that. And it generally requires more effort to be able to have that sort of focused meditation. And it is very useful though for strengthening this gamma and your focus and concentration. Now, the next type of meditation type techniques that you find out there are what they call self-monitoring or open monitoring meditations. And this usually involves some sort of monitoring of, maybe you're monitoring your breath rate, maybe you're monitoring your words or thoughts or feelings or someone else's guided thoughts or words. Perhaps you're monitoring what sensations are going on in your body. You're putting attention on some aspect of your body. Or maybe there's some sounds, maybe it's instrumental sounds or something like that you're putting your attention on. So these are very self-monitoring things that really activate reflection and contemplation and processing of things, processing of information. So when we do this, we activate what we call the beta frequency in the brain. So beta is also not as active as the gamma, but it's a slower frequency, but it is still keeping the mind on an active level in some way, because you're still processing things. And that is useful to help you process and reflect and contemplate and things like that. But again, it's still holding the mind on a relatively active level, maybe less than the focused attention meditations, but on a more deeper level, but there's still some activity that's going on there. And the whole key here is that the global alpha gets activated the most when the mind becomes the most settled. The more settled the mind is, the more global alpha coherent that the brain becomes. So then this last type of meditation, and this is shown to activate the most global alpha in the brain. And these are what they call automatic self-transcending techniques. And these are techniques that go beyond the technique itself, because any technique is just a vehicle. So these techniques ultimately bring you to a deeper level of settledness, because you're not just relying on focusing on the technique. It's allowing you to go beyond the technique. And this is what activates a lot of coherence in the brain, because of that settledness that these techniques allow. So there's two types of techniques that they've found in research to activate this global alpha coherence. One is one of the Qigong techniques, and the other one is TM, Transcendental Meditation. Now the difference between the two is that someone who had been practicing Qigong for quite some years activated that global alpha, versus the TM technique, because it's so simple and natural and effortless, that it has found right from the first time that you get to practice the technique, it activates more and more alpha in the brain because of its effortlessness. And what a lot of research has shown, especially the American Heart Association did, is that based on a meta-analysis of all the meditation relaxation techniques out there, they found that the TM technique was the most endorsed one based on scientific evidence that they can endorse to doctors, to endorse to patients, to naturally lower high blood pressure. So just about every major business leader and celebrity has taken to the TM technique because of this. Oprah and her team, Ellen DeGeneres and her team, Dr. Oz and his team, Ray Dalio, one of the biggest hedge fund managers in the world, and his team, they all utilize the TM technique because of its ability to bring the mind to a more settled level, to activate more of that global alpha so that you can utilize more of yourself and talent. So Those are the main ways, and the more that you can engage in any type of meditation, but specifically the self-transcending type meditation, then the more you're able to utilize more alpha in your brain, from which you can then utilize more of your competence and your confidence and your capabilities in what you have to do. Now, it's not going to make you perfect, but it's going to enable you to deal with the imperfections and the incoherences a lot more easily, because you're able to bounce back and adapt. See, with the global alpha, what it does is it is encompassing actually these two frequencies, these alert frequencies. At the same time, it's also activating these slower frequencies, which are known as delta and theta. So delta and theta are two frequencies that are activated when we dream and sleep, when we're in that more settled, relaxed state. So global alpha includes these as well. So it's like this. It includes both the active state of the mind and the settled state of the mind. And that is the best state to be in. One of our clients who leads a multi-billion-dollar company, he was doing the biggest deal he's ever done. It was a multi-billion-dollar deal. It involved long hours, tight time frames, many multiple no-go hurdles, and many, many possibilities for stress. And he said despite all that, he felt like he was the eye of the storm. All was calm and relaxed, and as a result, things fell into place. So he's experiencing doing something extremely dynamic, processing a lot of information and negotiations and discussions and things like that. Very active on the surface, yet at the same time, he's feeling calm and relaxed. And that's when you're able to see things a lot better. You have more capacity to see more, feel more, and know more about what's going on and how to proceed in the best way possible. So this is what Global Alpha is. It's a coherence that embraces both the active mind and the settled mind at the same time. And